Once upon a time, before we had touch screens in our hands, there was a name that everyone knew. It sounded confident, short, and somehow especially warm: Nokia. It was not just a company. It was a symbol of an era when the phone was something more than just a gadget. It was a friend who was always at hand, would withstand any fall, would not let you down at the most crucial moment, and would always be there, even when others gave up. In the early 2000s, something incredible was happening in the world. 1 in 3 phones held by a person on any continent bore the little blue Nokia logo. Imagine, out of the billions of people who pressed buttons, wrote SMS, and played Snake every day, 1 in 3 did so on a phone created in a small northern country, where winters are long and the sun hardly rises in the winter. And there was a paradox in this. No one expected that from distant Finland, a brand would emerge that would become an icon of a global scale. But Nokia knew how to surprise. Its phones were simple, reliable, and each of them seemed like a personal thing that you didn't want to change for years. Models like the 3310 became legends not because they had the latest technology, but because they always worked. Dropped it, picked it up, and it's with you again. The world didn't move so fast back then. The internet was just entering our lives, and the main thing was to call mom, text a friend, or send a short "I'm here" without unnecessary words. Nokia gave us this connection, and did it so well that no one even wondered if it could be better. The company's success seemed eternal. Their phones were everywhere, on the streets of New York and in African villages, in the hands of businessmen and in the pockets of teenagers, in airplane cockpits and in the depths of mines. And then no one could even imagine that this unshakable empire could ever shake. But history loves twists and turns. And it was here, behind the scenes of this stunning success, that something began that no one knew about at the time. When we think of Nokia, most people imagine legendary phones, impeccable quality, and global success. But the truth is that it all started very differently. Few people know that Nokia's history dates back to 1865. Back then it was not a technology company, but a simple paper factory located in a small Finnish town, among endless forests and cold lakes. It was a completely different world. Finland was not yet an independent state, and the paper industry was one of the few industries capable of providing jobs and supporting the development of the region. This factory, founded in the city of Nokia, gave its name to the future giant. But who would have thought that simple paper would become the foundation for a revolution in the world of communications? A few decades passed, and Nokia began to look to the future, to where technology would rule the world. At first, it was not phones, but rubber and cables that the company produced for various industrial purposes. At the time, it seemed, why would a paper manufacturer get involved in technology? But it was this flexibility and willingness to try new things that gave Nokia the chance to grow into something much more. In the 1960s, Nokia was no longer just a local factory. It became a conglomerate that united several companies, from paper production to electronics and telecommunications. But the most interesting thing began when Nokia made a bet on mobile communications. This was a time when phones were huge, inconvenient, and extremely expensive, available only to a select few. But Nokia saw an opportunity to change that. Remember how we mentioned that Nokia had a knack for surprising people? Well, that's when the real experimentation began, which eventually led to the creation of the first mobile phone. It was a breakthrough that changed everything. It seemed strange, but a phone that could once weigh almost a kilogram became a symbol of a new era of communication, an era where people could be connected regardless of their location. The story of the first Nokia mobile phone is one of determination and faith in the future. A team of engineers worked late into the night, often with no guarantee of success, but with the desire to create something that would change people's lives. They knew they had an opportunity to not just make a device, but to revolutionize the way we communicate. Of course, it wasn't easy. There were many doubts, setbacks, and challenges along the way. Competitors were powerful, technologies were new and complex, and the market wasn't always ready for change. But Nokia didn't give up. It learned from its mistakes, changed its approach, and kept moving forward. Interestingly, at that time Nokia was not just creating phones, it was building an entire ecosystem. From networks that supported communication to services and ease of use. This was the philosophy that underpinned its success: to make technology accessible and understandable to everyone. And that is why, when the first models went to the masses, people loved them not only for their design, but also for the feeling of reliability and closeness. One of the key moments was the release of the Nokia 1011 in 1992, the first mass-market digital mobile phone that opened the door to the modern era of mobile communications. The device wasn't perfect, but it laid the foundation for future bestsellers. Then came the models that have become legendary: Nokia 3210, 3310, 5110. These phones were not just a means of communication. They were small technological works of art, able to withstand bumps, drops, and thousands of button presses. Everyone who held these models in their hands felt that this was more than a phone. It was a part of life. Have you ever wondered why Nokia was able to create such phones? The answer lies in their culture. The company believed that technology should be simple, understandable, and accessible. They did not make phones for the rich, but for people, for students, workers, students, and businessmen. And this became their main trump card. In the end, Nokia became more than just a company. It became part of a culture. Its logo was associated with reliability, affordability, and true technological quality. Imagine a time when buying a mobile phone did not require taking out a loan or spending hours searching for a model that would not break in a month. Nokia gave this to everyone and everyone. But here's the thing. In 2005, Nokia had a unique opportunity. It had the technology in its hands that could not just compete, but completely revolutionize the world of mobile phones. It was a chance to become not just the king of push-button phones, but the leader of the smartphone era. And here's where the fun begins. A company that looked so confidently into the future suddenly abandoned this technology. Why? This question still remains one of the greatest mysteries in the history of business and technology. What is this technology? And why did Nokia, which could have changed the course of history, decide not to use this trump card? The answer to this question is hidden in the following parts of our story, and it will change your perception of the legend we knew so well. The early 2000s were a time when Nokia didn't just hold a position in the market, it ruled the world of mobile communications. The company produced phones that people knew, loved, and trusted. Model after model, it created icons, simple, durable, reliable, with its own unique soul. Remember the legendary Nokia 3310? This phone became a true symbol of an entire generation. It was impossible to break it literally. It survived falls from heights, blows, immersion in water, and still continued to work. The streets of any city in the world were filled with these devices. They became more than just phones. They became a part of life, memories, a communication tool, and even culture. Nokia was expanding. Its sales were growing wildly. In 2007, it controlled over 40% of the global mobile phone market. It was a real kingdom. The company felt invincible. It ruled the market, set the standards, and dictated the rules of the game. But then, in the shadow of this brilliance, the first clouds were already beginning to appear. And who would have thought that Nokia's greatest enemy would come not from outside, but from within? After all, it was during these years, when everyone looked at push-button phones as the pinnacle, that others were preparing a revolution. Apple had just introduced its iPhone, which turned the idea of what a phone should be upside down. Google was rapidly beginning to develop Android, the system that would soon take over the world. And this is where the real struggle begins. Nokia, which had been steadfast for so long, suddenly found itself faced with a choice: whether to take the risk and embrace this new reality, or stick with what was familiar and tried and tested. The company had all the resources, talent, and technology to be on the crest of the wave. But that's when it started to have doubts. Why? What exactly made the strongest player hesitate? Why didn't they run forward, but took a step back? This question is still a subject of debate and investigation. The answer lies not simply in business strategy, but in people, decisions, and perhaps fears. But what's interesting is that Nokia didn't just have a chance to maintain its lead. It had a secret trump card, a technology that could change the rules of the game. The same technology we mentioned earlier. And here's the catch that won't let you tear yourself away. This technology was brilliant and revolutionary, but no one still knows exactly why Nokia decided not to use it. Was this a management error? Was it a deliberate strategy? Or were there other forces at play that we don't yet know about? The answer to this is hidden in the following parts of our story. And if you think you know Nokia, prepare to be surprised. Because this story is gaining momentum, and what happened next changed not only the fate of the company, but also the entire world of mobile technology. When you're at the top, it feels like the world is in your hands. That's what those years felt like for Nokia. Every day came record-breaking sales figures, rave reviews, and global recognition. And all of it weighed equally as much as proof that you had created something real, something that people valued. But within the company, seeds of doubt had already begun to sprout. Those who worked on new developments sensed that something was changing. Innovations from other countries, new ideas, and unpredictable technologies were beginning to undermine Nokia's stability. Should we take the risk? Was the question echoed in hallways and offices. We have the technology to make our phones incredible, but what if the world isn't ready? What if we lose what we have? These thoughts were tearing many apart. Because dreaming and moving forward is one thing, but risking the success that provides security to thousands of employees and millions of users is quite another. At the time, the team of engineers working on the revolutionary technology felt both confused and hopeful. They knew it could be a game-changing breakthrough, but they felt that decisions were being made not only on the basis of innovation. Nokia's management clung to tradition, to a tried-and-true formula that had brought them success for years. They feared that changing too quickly could destroy their world. And this fear became a trap. Imagine, there was a struggle within the company between the desire to reach new heights and the desire to preserve what had already been created. It was a time of internal conflicts, fears, and misunderstandings. But deep down, everyone dreamed of a future where Nokia would be first again. They dreamed that their developments would change the world and go down in history. But dreams, as often happens, turned out to be too fragile in the face of the cold reality of business. And here comes the moment that changed everything. The company abandons revolutionary technology. This choice seemed safe, prudent, but in fact it was the beginning of the end of a great era. Now, looking back, many at Nokia regret this decision. Because it didn't just relegate the company to the background. It gave the green light to competitors who weren't afraid of change. But was it just a mistake? Or could it have been more? This story has its heroes and anti-heroes, its victories and defeats, its moments of light and shadow. And as we approach the most difficult part, remember, behind every company there are people with their dreams, fears, and hopes. The next part will reveal even more about the drama that unfolded at Nokia, about the losses, and how the world of mobile technology changed forever. Remember that mysterious chance we were talking about? That revolutionary technology that could have kept Nokia at the top? It was a time when smartphones were just beginning to change the way we think about connectivity, when touchscreens and operating systems were the future. And Nokia had it all: the talent, the resources, the experience, and the technology that could have become the iPhone before the iPhone. This technology was called MIMO, a full-fledged operating system designed for smartphones that opened up new possibilities for users and developers. It was flexible, modern, and perfect for the era that was coming. And yet, in 2007 to 2008, the company made the choice to abandon its own developments and instead enter into a partnership with Microsoft, adopting Windows Phone as the platform for future smartphones. Why? This decision was one of the biggest shocks in the world of technology. Nokia's management was afraid of risks, hesitating between innovation and stability. They thought it would be better to rely on a proven partner than to struggle alone in a new world where everything changes so quickly. But this decision turned out to be fatal. MIMO died, never truly born, and Nokia gradually lost its audience. Competitors like Apple and Samsung rushed forward, offering increasingly advanced devices. Internal struggles, employee dissatisfaction, confusion, and strategies. All this became a burden that dragged the company down. And the most painful thing is the realization that a huge chance was lost due to fear and indecision. Imagine, a company that was once a symbol of reliability and innovation finds itself on the verge of failure due to internal conflicts and poor decisions. But even in the darkest times, Nokia did not lose heart. It began a slow revival, learning from its mistakes and trying to find its place in the new world. This story is about how even the greatest can fall, but also how they can rise again. And this is not the end of Nokia. The story of Nokia is not just a tale of ups and downs. It is a living legend that teaches us that even the greatest can make mistakes, lose, and become fragile. But most importantly, it is a story of the ability to learn, adapt, and find the strength to move forward again. Today, Nokia is no longer just a manufacturer of push-button phones, but a company at the forefront of technological innovations, 5G, the Internet of Things, network solutions. It is once again fighting for its place in the sun, developing new products and projects that can change the world again. For many, this is unexpected. For those who remember its greatness, it is hope. Because Nokia is not just a brand. It is a symbol of how you can fall and rise, how you can learn from mistakes and become stronger. What's next? Can Nokia regain its former glory? Can it change the world like it once did? We'll see the answer in the near future. And for now, this story remains an open one, a story of dreams, risks, fears, and victories. And it reminds us all, true strength lies not in never falling, but in getting up again and moving forward.